Welcome to the Fantasy Coaching Game Plan presented by Miller Lite. My name is Jimmy Rooney. I'm here to introduce the Miller Lite Fantasy Coaching Contest in the Pro Fantasy Coaching Game mobile app. Pro FCG is a mobile app that enables all fans to connect a game board to live football games, guess each upcoming play call in real time, and score points to rise up the leaderboards and win great prizes. This season, Miller Lite is offering prizes to the top scoring players during select Steelers games at partner venues in the Pittsburgh area. Download and register for the Pro FCG app and connect to a Steelers game in the app to enter. Participate for a chance to win tickets to Steelers versus Chiefs or Steelers versus Bengals at Acrisure Stadium at the end of the season. The more you play, the more chances you get to win. The game is entirely free to play, and there's no purchase necessary to participate in the contest. Find full contest and gameplay details in the show notes below. I'm joined today by Steelers and NFL analyst Matt Williamson to analyze the Steelers and Commanders coaching tendencies and put together a game plan for how to make the best picks in the Pro Fantasy Coaching Game app this weekend. Matt, welcome to the show.
Yeah, good stuff, man. Ravens week, the Steelers are rolling. It was a fun one last week. It might be even more fun this one. I mean, it was a battle for first place in the AFC North. Gotta love it.
Yeah, it's always fun when Ravens Steelers is back to these high stakes games. So,
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So, as you mentioned, we got the Steelers playing the Ravens in Pittsburgh this week. So, just jumping into it, big picture, what do you think we're going to see in this one?
Well, the Ravens are, Steelers Ravens always seems like a 13-9 game. It's a battle, it's going to be physical. But this one doesn't set up that way on paper. I mean, the Ravens to me clearly have the best offense in the league. They might have the best running game and passing game in the league. Nobody runs on the Ravens, but their pass defense is horrific. I mean, it's a real problem this year. So Ravens games are high scoring. I mean, they score a ton. People don't even bother running against them. Their special teams aren't quite as good as they've been. Justin Tucker's actually missing field goals. Steelers have a big special teams advantage, and they might have the best kicker in the league, and that's not Tucker anymore. So you never know what to expect. It's going to be a battle. It's going to be a tightly fought game. The Steelers play these guys and Lamar really well, but this is a different version.
Awesome. Yeah. So it sounds like this could be a really uncharacteristically exciting, high scoring one.
I think so.
Yeah. So, and then, as we've been kind of working on for a few weeks with this contest, our players are trying to figure out on a play-by-play basis, what are teams going to call in terms of run pass, how well they're going to work. So, we'll just dive in first to the Steelers offense. What can you tell us about their tendencies or how they're changing week to week?
Well, along with the Eagles, these are the two run heaviest offenses in the league. So they're two of the three run heaviest offenses in the league. And we talk about that every week, of course, because they love to run the football. Even with Russell Wilson, they're throwing it better now, but they still love to run the football with heavier personnel. Extra tight ends on the field. They lead the league in 14 personnel with 4 tight ends, 13 personnel. They lead the league. But running against the Ravens makes no sense. I mean, they're the best in the league stopping the run on a per play basis, and teams just don't do it because they've had so many problems in the back end of their defense. Now, does Arthur Smith and company say, we're a running team, we're going to do what we do, like it or not? Or do you say we've got a veteran quarterback that we trust more than we do in recent years, and Russ, go rip apart their, biggest weakness? So I would imagine the pass percentage goes up drastically in this game compared to Steeler trends. I mean, because it always does against the Ravens. That's just how everyone's playing them.
Right. Yeah. So there's an opportunity to throw the ball hopefully on the Ravens this week, and obviously Russ has been pretty successful with that recently. Where do you think in the Ravens defense the Steelers will be able to target? I guess with their are they throwing deep, intermediate, short? How do they go about it?
Deep. So the average time to throw to the Ravens against the Ravens is pretty high, and the reasoning is they were a really good pass rushing unit last year, but they created a lot of their pressure with blitz. And they lost their defensive coordinator, became the head coach in Seattle, and they lost 2 other prime defensive assistants that became defensive coordinators in Tennessee and in Miami. and their blitz packages have suffered dramatically. And the other thing that's happened, I think, because of the coaching changes is communication has been really poor. A lot of blown coverages, struggling to get plays in on time. They're the most penalized team in the league on, overall, but a lot of that's defensive. So teams are able to hold the football longer because the blitzes aren't getting home and they don't have a premier TJ Watt type pass rusher. And their defensive tackles are more run stuffers, although Matabuke is really good. So you're able to hold the ball a little longer, attack downfield, and the tackling on the back seven, particularly in the secondary, has been quite bad. And we're recording this on a Tuesday. They played last Thursday, so they have a long rest. But their most important defensive player, I would say, or certainly right at the top, Kyle Hamilton, a big safety, first round pick, who's really one of the best safeties in the league, is unlikely to play. And that would be one of the guys you would most want to get out of the equation if you're the Steelers. So I don't think you're just going to dink and dunk them and throw behind the line of scrimmage. But we saw what Jamar Chase did to this team. I mean, he set the record for most yards against an opponent in a season, but in his 2 games against the Ravens this year combined. I'm sure they're going to throw to Pickens in a similar manner. And everyone in the world knew that Chase was all the Bengals had and they couldn't stop it. So I think you'll see Pickens at all levels, but it's not bashful at all in terms of throwing deep. And that's what Wilson does. I've been saying with Wilson, even before he became a Steeler, he's got a putter and a chipper and he's got a driver, but he doesn't have the other woods. He doesn't throw very often in the intermediate areas. He doesn't throw in the middle of the field very often, but he goes downfield with a very high average depth of target. So that sets up really well for him.
Great. Yeah. So it sounds like big picture, kind of the strengths and weaknesses of both units really match up to where we're expecting the Steelers trend to reverse, be a little bit more pass heavy, throwing downfield. With this Ravens defense, they might have a lot of success throwing downfield, passing splash plays, things like that. Are there any sort of keys that stand out to you in terms of, down and distance, area of the field, anything that'll kind of clue people in on when the Steelers might be trying to run or the pass or the, different types of passes, things like that?
Yeah. I would think that the Steelers still throw out a heavier personnel a lot. I mean, I still think you're going to see 13 personnel with 3 tight ends out there. I'm not implying that even with Mike Williams in the fold that they're going to go 4 wide. I mean, and change your personnel groupings. I think you're still going to want to get their heavier personnel on the field and attack with Pickens at all levels. I think there's more tendencies on the other side of the ball or things to really look for. But I will say too, Hamilton and Arthur Millette, who people are familiar with, are very different players. But they both will be slot guys. And Millette is somebody that's much better versus the run than the pass. And when you see him on the field, I think they'll attack Millette quite a bit, somebody that they're really familiar with. And then they replaced Hamilton, who's this 6'4", body beautiful safety, with a mid-round pick this year, Washington, who's kind of the opposite. He's like a 5'9" safety, and I would think you're going to attack him quite a bit too. So Millette and Washington are 2 targets, but really the entire secondary is underachieved this year.
Great. Okay. So yeah, that's the big key for the offense is look at those matchups against the backup nickel backs and safeties and some downfield passing.
Yeah.
It sounds
One
like
trend I wanted to throw out earlier that I forgot is these are the 2 defenses that are the highest percentage of runs between the tackles. So when teams do run against these teams, a very high percentage on both accounts are between the tackles.
So that would be the Steelers offense would be running between the tackles against the Ravens defense, or
both these defenses are the highest percentage. So that's how teams are choosing to attack or run the ball against the Ravens and Steelers.
Right. And just based on kind of previous conversations we've had, it sounds like that might be playing to Najee's strengths more than
yes.
Other backs.
And I also think both these groups have really fast linebackers, Queen, the former Raven, and Roquan Smith, that can track things down on the outside runs. So they're attacking more up the middle.
Sure. Okay, great. we're looking for runs up the middle, passes downfield, and targeting those backs. And I guess now's a good time to jump to the other side of the ball. We got, the Ravens offense versus the Steelers defense. What can you tell us about that matchup?
It's a brutal challenge. I mean, everyone with a set of eyes knows that Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson are special specimens. They don't look or play like most running backs or quarterbacks. And even just their running game is a nightmare to play against. But now Lamar has taken massive steps forward, even with pure drop back pocket passing. Like he won the MVP last year and he's noticeably better this year. Now they throw a lot of different personnel at you. I mean, their fullback, Patrick Ricard, a 300-pound player, plays as much as any fullback in the league. They play with multiple tight ends a lot. They're the lowest percentage of 11 personnel, one back, one tight end, three receivers in the entire league. But I find this interesting is teams are choosing to attack the Steelers out of 11 with three receivers, a very high percentage. They're not trying to get big against the Steelers. They're trying to get you in nickel, get you in dime. And that's not at all what the Ravens do. But 2 weeks ago, they traded for Deontay Johnson. So now they have a third receiver that maybe they're looking at things like, we don't really like to play with three receivers, but that's how the best way to attack the Steelers is. Let's give it a shot with the former Steeler,
Sure. So it sounds like the first key on this side we're looking for is when the Ravens choose to play heavy or when they choose to come out in 11.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And again, just like the Steelers, every down and distance, every situation, the Ravens are run heavier, or one of the run heaviest teams in the league. Now, I think the Steelers will definitely buck that trend on offense. I don't know if the Ravens will, because they're really, really good at it. And even in like the one tendency that does stand out though is their run heaviest time is second downs. They're an extremely run heavy second down team. And they also might pass more than you think. They throw more than you think, like in neutral situations when the game is very even early on. But when they get a lead, they run it down your throat.
Right. Okay. So again, second down, run heavy, early neutral situations are a little bit more pass heavy, and
then you might think, yeah,
right,
for a run heavy team.
If the Ravens get a lead, then expect a lot more runs as well.
100%. Now, I don't think Lamar versus Steelers, he has not been as effective as a runner as he is against most teams. And we saw this last week with Jaden Daniels, a very similar style and very similar runner, that they really do a good job game planning of anyone can beat us except the quarterback as a runner. The way they rush the passer on the read option stuff, the edge defenders will almost force Lamar to pitch it or hand it to the running back. Yeah. And so I would think, you never know, he's a great player. He's probably going to be the MVP again, but I would think Lamar rushing numbers will be lower than you would expect for someone as good as he is. I mean, Jaden Daniels had 5 yards rushing last week and didn't have any scrambles on called pass plays. That's the scheme.
Yeah, so that's especially helpful, I guess, as people are trying to guess run pass. Traditionally with, Lamar, even in a passing situation, you might expect to run by scramble, but the
much
Steelers
less than usual
is able to contain that. And if you're thinking pass, or if it's a passing situation, expect the ball to be thrown.
Yes, and I think last week was a great indicator because Washington's very similar. Daniels had 0 scrambles, so if he drops back, they are going to do a very good job of keeping him in the pocket.
Right. So two big keys we're seeing on this side of the ball is second down is particularly run heavy, but then passing situations are, probably going to be passes based on, Steelers containing the scramble.
And if they take a lead into the halftime, expect a very heavy run second half.
Great. Okay. Those are 3 great things to look for. Anything else on this side of the ball that stands out to you?
The biggest trend, of course, this offense is just really hard to deal with.
Yeah.
that the Ravens have basically been able to do more or less whatever they want, run or pass, throughout the whole season. And they're going to mix in a lot of different tight ends, a fullback, 3 different receivers, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, the most unique and one of the best running backs in the league. And the O-line's getting better. The O-line was a weakness, but now it's just slightly below average, I would say.
Sure.
Especially the right side of the line, though, is problematic. I mean, Rosengarten, the rookie right tackle, is going to really have his hands full with Watt. And clearly their worst lineman is the right guard, Falele, who's like 400 pounds and on the ground a lot.
Okay. So just typically on a Ravens play, we have our keys for run pass, but typically we're expecting them to gain. We're not going to be picking a lot of, no gain, short yardage, but probably
No.
more likely, 4 to 6 yards or longer on a typical play.
I mean, what they're doing per play is crazy. I'll
Yeah.
read this to you here real quick. First off, Henry averages the most yards per carry in the league by a pretty good chunk. I mean, he's over 6, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And there's 3 offenses in the league right now that average over 6 yards a play. So the Packers are at 6-1. That's tremendous. The Niners are at 6-5. That's rare. Baltimore's at 7-1. So from 1 to 3 is a full yard difference. From 1 to 2 is 0.6 of a yard difference. I mean, to be averaging 7.1 yards every time you snap the ball is ludicrous. And I know even if they win, I'm going to get hearing from Steeler fans on Monday, man, they allowed a lot of yards. They allowed a lot of points. This defense is terrible. But that's who you're playing against. There's going to be yardage. There's going to be points.
And that kind of fits nicely with the threshold on the fantasy coaching game board. Is you can either pick, on a run, you can pick 4 to 6 yards or 7 to 10 yards or 10 plus. And it sounds like unusually for a running attack, it might be more in the 7 to 10 yards or 10 plus yard category when you are picking run.
Now, the Steelers are really good at eliminating big plays, but this is the best offense in the league.
But you got to respect Derrick Henry. So
and if he gets free, look out.
Yeah, factor that in.
Very few negative plays for the Ravens.
Right. So based on, the end of our segment last week, I just want to make sure I made time for if you're seeing anything on special teams. Obviously, the Steelers have been pretty successful with turnovers and blocks and returns, and obviously had the controversial pass on a punt. But is there anything we should be looking for on special teams this week?
Along those lines, there's one note that I wanted to make here too before we get there, is the Ravens pretty far and away are the most penalized team in the league too. So that's a key note here. That can derail their offense a little bit. They can go backwards. They get grabby. I mean, and on special teams as well. So a lot of penalties from the Ravens. Now on special teams, I don't study or break down special teams all 22 tape. But basically, since I've been doing this for a living, the Harbaugh era, Baltimore is always top 5 in any special team metric ever. And Tucker goes a long way for that over the years. But it's also, Harbaugh was a special teams coach. He stresses it and coaches it better than most. This year's different. I mean, Tucker is now a mediocre kicker, and we're seeing 50-plus yard field goals be routine in the league, but not for him, which is crazy. And really, they're just a mediocre special teams group where it's become pretty clear that the Steelers are the best special teams unit in the whole league. And frankly, if Pierre catches that fake punt, they would be way above everybody else even more, but they still caused a fumble on a punt return, almost caused one before that. We know that they're unbelievable at blocking kicks, and Tucker's not automatic anymore, and Boswell is.
So again, that's on the game board, fantasy coaching players, all these special team situations, you can pick blocked punts, return touchdown on punts, missed field goals, made field goals. So again, when we're looking at, Boswell, it's been a pretty reliable make. Tucker, you might be able to score some points on a missed field goal.
Yeah.
Any of these situations, players can steal points by picking a block or a splash return, things like that. So
unusual things seem to happen on Steelers special teams, and unusual for the Ravens things seem to be happening to them this year.
And those unusual things are worth, as you could predict, extra points in
I would
this game.
assume,
So
yeah.
it's a great way to steal some points and try to win your contest this week.
Very cool.
Um,
That's a good angle here. And again, don't forget about the penalties with the Ravens. They're
yeah,
a heavy penalized team.
got it. Cool. Well, that's all of our situations. Do you have any last things to highlight?
I don't think. I mean, we got pretty in depth. There's a
Yeah.
lot to unpeel here with this. Obviously, these coaches know each other extremely well. Something I've been saying from a Harbaugh perspective is when he plays the Bengals and Burrow, I mean, that era, he's super aggressive. I got to score 40 points to win this game. And we saw that Thursday night. But his mindset seems like the total opposite when he plays the Steelers. Like,
Mhm.
first one to 13 wins. I know that and we're going to play it close to the vest, and we're not going to take a lot of risks. But as we said to start the show, I mean, the Ravens are constructed a lot different than they usually are. I mean, usually it's defense and toughness and all that. And it's not that they're not tough, but they're winning with offense.
Yeah. Okay. So potentially he'd be a little more risk averse in this matchup based on having a high flying offense and
Maybe,
playing
but
the
boy, these
divisional.
coaches
Yeah,
know each other so well they might just fall into their old tendencies and
sure.
be happy to punt. I don't know, but
Yeah.
you wouldn't think so.
Okay. Great. Well, that's another good thing to look for on fourth downs.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I guess that's everything. We've covered all the units here. So, Matt, thank you so much for joining, and for all of your great insights here. Where can listeners find more of your work?
Yeah, the best way is just Twitter X at Williamson NFL. I host a bunch of podcasts and check them out. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely check those out. And, thank you everybody for tuning in. Remember to use all this expertise from Matt Williamson to win your next Miller Lite fantasy coaching contest in the Pro Fantasy Coaching Game app. Thanks again to Matt Williamson for joining. Use his expert advice to win prizes at the next Miller Lite Fantasy Coaching Contest. Download and register for the Pro FCG app and connect to a Steelers game in the app to enter. Participate for a chance to win tickets to Steelers versus Chiefs or Steelers versus Bengals at Acrisure Stadium in week 17 and 18. The more you play, the more chances you get to win. Join live contests and win exclusive prizes at Coupe de Ville, Walter's Barbecue, Lot 17, The Clubhouse, Rochester Inn, Twin Peaks, Mulligan Sports Bar and Grill, and Monaco's Bar and Grill on select game days. The game is entirely free to play, and there's no purchase necessary to participate in the contest. Thank you for listening, and may the best coach win.